All right, boom. Episode 3, the Wavy Gang podcast, the next wave.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Silva.
The next wave, Anderson Silva. That will be our story for the night or the day or your evening listening, whatever you're doing.
Wherever you are.
Here's
Whether you're driving to work or driving home or driving to the
Wherever you go, wherever you are, the next wave
Exactly.
is going to find right here, baby. All day.
Back like we never left.
Or when you want to hear us, you can pause this too and then play again. We're there.
Whatever works for you guys.
We're waiting.
Ryan, I keep seeing you playing golf at that Big Rock Country. Is that the one you work at?
I'm working at Big Rock inside and outside. So I get to hear all the complaining and it's awesome.
I just love that.
It either be them getting complained about or not, but they don't know.
What do you do for the golf course exactly?
Just maintenance work, trimming, mowing, that kind of stuff for the outdoors, picking up range balls, bringing them to the clubhouse, and then also work inside. So, register, cooking, whatever needs done. Because when you're on the clock, you're by yourself. Everything's on you.
Just a man of many talents out there. I see you.
Operations.
Yeah, you got to get all the tournaments signed up for people doing that, bring all the carts out, put them back in. There's a lot of stuff to it, but it's fun once you get the hang of it.
I think it's cool he gets to do hole placement.
That is cool. I do like that.
Place where he wants the hole on the green. I'm like, hell yeah, put that shit on the edge right next to the rough.
Yeah, that's so fucked. Speaking of,
like, almost know when people are going to complain because you'll be like, yeah, I put that there.
Like, I'm ready for what they're going to say today.
They're like, man, that hole number 2's pretty hard today. I'm like, you bet.
You goddamn, I put that there myself.
Hope you came to play, Grandpa.
Speaking of, did y'all see, it might have been like a month ago now, I think it was on the women's PGA tour, or I guess it'd be the LPGA tour, excuse me. They had to stop play, I think, at one of the tournaments because one hole was so difficult to get to. Basically, anywhere you hit the ball, no matter how close it got to the hole, like how good your speed was, the ball was going to roll another 10 feet back off the green, like at least, no matter how you approach this whole selection.
You remember what course that was?
I don't, but like the hole was apparently like just on the edge of a cliff on the green, and every ball, just no matter where you put it, if you didn't drain it, it was going to end up another 20, 30 feet away minimum.
That's definitely happened before. I've seen a couple of videos like that where literally every single person, it might have been an NCAA women's tournament, like completely missed on, let's say, hole 17. Like everybody was missing at least 2 putts. It wasn't like, oh, this is whoa.
Yeah, it was literally so bad they had to stop the tournament to re-hole and start it over or something like that.
That's such a smack in the face to grounds crew.
We had a hole like that about a month ago. We actually had a college kid hole place, and he ended up getting fired not too long ago. But that was for like not showing up. So, he ended up placing one, and then we had a tournament come up, and it was just like that, where it was right off the side, like wherever you put it, it was going to fall off the green and go straight into a sand trap.
He knew what he was doing.
It was bad.
He knew what he was doing. That's for sure.
Classic. Somebody's got to do it at least once.
I would be so pissed.
Oh, I'm sure people were furious.
Absolutely.
Did they really stop the tournament though and change it?
No, I don't think it was as bad as LPGA was, but it was bad enough where every single person that came in the clubhouse, they were like, somebody's got to do something about that green. The greenskeeper really must hate himself right now. They think he always places the holes, and that's just not the case. But
You're
yeah,
like, yeah, that was mine today. No big deal.
no, I wouldn't take that one.
No, I completely understand. I've low key done things in different roles where I'm like, this is going to be really tough. Like, I want people to be challenged today. And they're like, who the fuck did this? Why are we doing this? We need to change. And then people go on and change it. And it's, man, do something hard for once.
At least in a
Exactly.
tournament setting, everybody's going to be shooting at that same hole anyways. So what's the difference?
Yeah. It's like everybody. Yeah, exactly. It's like baseline for everybody. Everybody's got to do it. See who does it better. Maybe everybody's got a triple
Adapt or
bogey.
die. Adapt or die.
Adapt or die. Maybe somebody breaks a pitching wedge. I don't know.
It wouldn't be the first time. I think Ryan enjoys that. He sees a guy breaking it, he's going to go collect that club. He's got a whole collection at home. People that get pissed at his hole placements.
Put this together and put it on Marketplace.
It's just like an L.
That's Ryan's side hustle. He does artwork with broken clubs from the golf course.
Wall art. Honestly, that's a great idea.
That's not a bad idea.
It's a money idea. That's a new route.
There you go.
We'll talk about this later.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, Ryan, it's your show today, bud. You want to get us going on Anderson Silva?
Sure. So the background on Anderson Silva is he was born in Sao Paulo, Brazil, born in 1975. He has 5 children, 3 sons, 2 daughters. And he first began training in jiu-jitsu when he was around the age of 8 or so. He was not the wealthiest of families, so instead of being able to get lessons in jiu-jitsu, he would learn from kids that were able to go get lessons. And that's how he ended up getting into the sport, fighting and the MMA of mixed martial arts.
I wonder how
So it's
many fighters are actually from Sao Paulo. So that sounds like a great starting place. Just building that chemistry over time. We're going to practice jujitsu in the parking lot of the neighborhood, or not parking lot, but you know what I'm saying? We're going to practice in the neighborhood today.
Yeah, if you have friends that are going to classes and you're like just doing it after school or whatever, you're like, yeah, let's
Almost
learn.
every day.
Let's just start fighting.
No kidding. That's like us playing wiffle ball after school in the cul-de-sac. Like, that was something we just did. We didn't go sign up for practice, and we're doing this 2 days a week. Like,
Yeah,
now
these
we're
guys,
doing this, like, as much as we can.
yeah, these guys are just like, dude, check this out. I learned how to snap someone's elbow in 3 different ways today. Check this out.
This a completely different route of like, how many of those kids got hurt and like severely hurt in the cul-de-sac or in somebody's backyard. Like, oh fuck, we broke it.
And that
Separated
at
Jimmy
that
shit.
age, they got pretty good dexterity. I'm sure they were fine.
Survival of the fittest at 10 years old.
Anderson became one of the best for a reason, I guess.
Bro, all the genetic makeup is so different. You know how many kids dislocated their shoulder or broke their collarbone in like 5th grade? I saw so many, I feel like. But then you got your buddy who could fall off like a treehouse from 20 feet and he'd get back up and be fine. I was that kid too. I remember doing a misty flip on Grayson and Garrett's trampoline and landing like on the metal rod on my shoulder and then hitting the ground. And I got back up and was like, all right, let's do it again.
Dude, I remember we had one kid, I think it was middle school, who in the same week, he was one of those kids that was 100% accident prone. I think the first thing he did, he had a can of Axe blow up in his face because he was doing the fire thing with it, seared his eyebrows off. And then in the same week, broke both his arms and or collarbones. So he's like walking around like in a cast where he can't move with no eyebrows. And I was like, Jesus Christ, bud.
You'll never live that down, dude. That's
No.
terrible.
He's that kid. Like, why do you got to go to school if you're looking like that?
Dude, I would demand to stay home.
How old at the time?
It was middle school, so I don't know, whatever the age of middle schoolers are, I don't remember. I
No,
think
middle school, worst time for that.
like 12? Does that sound about right?
It's either the worst or the best
It's
time for that, because
12 to 14.
Something like
middle
that.
school was bad for, I feel like, everybody.
Yeah, definitely.
Middle school was, I don't know. Maybe some people love middle school. My middle school experience was kind of, I don't know, there's positives, right? But in terms of developmentally,
Well, you start
there's a
to
lot of,
figure some things out, that's for sure. That's when I figured out that I hated football and that wasn't gonna be a good sports path for me, so everybody was just bigger and stronger, and I just kept getting rocked every day at practice. I was like, "This sport blows, dude. I can't play this."
there's a lot of injuries in middle school. And I remember first day of practice, there's a lot of hype. You get put in a position, you're like, oh, I'm going to be playing defensive back in high school. I can't be a middle linebacker my senior year. I don't know. You just start like thinking, like, I'm starting my track to varsity kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I remember we're doing this tackling drill. We're all lined up, standing in a circle or something, and we're like sprinting after these tackling dummies to take them out. It's kind of like bull in the ring, but it's tackling dummies. So it's like they call your number, you sprint, you go tackle the dummy. It's like read and react. And I remember we just started this drill, and my buddy Brandon Moore was like, I thought he was going to be an awesome linebacker. I've told him this before too. He crushes this dummy, lifts it in the air, feet are off the ground, land the ground, completely rolls over his like forearm, it looks like, from my perspective. Gets up, his arm's broken. He's done. Out for the season. And
It
that was
just wasn't
practice.
meant to
Like,
be.
I have a pretty clear cut image in my head when that happened.
Oh, yeah. Alright,
We-
Ryan, tell me some more about Mr. Silva
Yeah.
here.
Silva wasn't the richest growing up. So before his fighting career began, he actually worked at McDonald's and was also a file clerk. So he had some odd jobs before actually getting in the ring and beating people up for money, not robbing. No. His nickname is Spider, which I'm guessing you can think, what kind of comic do you think he likes?
The Hulk.
Close. The other red one. Flash.
Spider-Man. Oh,
Yeah.
that was a good one.
He's a huge Spider-Man fan. Like comic, that's his favorite hero. And that's actually where his nickname comes from, which I thought it was from his style of fighting. I just thought Spider is different. He was just flying kicks and all that. So they probably just call him Spider. He likes spiders or something.
I think it makes
But-
sense too. That's not what I was thinking.
Yeah, I always thought it was based off fighting style. I didn't know that either.
Yeah, so it's just his love for Spider-Man. The inner child comes out, and that's where it comes from. All right, so jumping back into Silva, he is trained and utilizes all of these different techniques. Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Wing Chun, boxing, Judo, Capoeira, Jeet Kune Do, and Taekwondo.
Nailed it.
Amazing that one guy can utilize all of those different techniques and probably use it in one fight.
It's a heck of an arsenal, no doubt.
That's probably what made him so deadly for so long is that he keeps people guessing because he could do it all. That'd be my guess.
Bro, his build though is big time for him. Like the length, the power he can generate through his legs, I feel like is what made him really stand out.
Oh,
Just
dude, yeah.
We're all using his unique body to his advantage is how you capitalize in that sport. Big time, I believe.
Exactly. His kicks were what put him on the map and what made him so much must-see TV. Plus the way he ducked and dived and dodged and did all that good stuff too. Because he did like the Muhammad Ali technique where he like puts his face in front of you, but he's always moving and dodging. It was just really entertaining always to watch him.
Yeah, he was somebody everybody looked to watch for a long time, and I wasn't even big into UFC, but I would try and watch his fights. I was like, all right, Anderson Silva's fighting. That's more so how I was pushed into watching UFC was Anderson Silva and guys like Forrest Griffin and Chuck Liddell and just the energy and the aura they brought out there and like their specialties and things like that, which we got a list of the trademark moves as well.
Yeah. And I was just gonna say, same here. He was literally the first guy I remember actually watching UFC on.
First pay-per-view, we were actually like, oh, we should actually get that.
Exactly.
Then you got your Brock Lesnar's and Danielle Cormier, and there's a lot of key fighters that we had the privilege to watch UFC grow with. BJ Penn.
BJ Penn was an animal in his day too, in his prime.
Yeah, they definitely made it interesting initially. Dana White's doing a good job with recruiting, I would say.
I'd say so.
Squad, how they're finding the guys that can qualify to compete. They're doing the diligence.
They have that show, that Ultimate Fighter, and that's usually a pretty big one where they get recruits in that go up to the UFC. They just have teams and then they go pretty much fight each other and earn a spot is how it goes. And that's where that clip of Rampage Jackson breaks down a door.
That's the
Yeah.
only thing I remember from that show. I was just about to say that.
Man, when did that show start? Because I completely forgot about it, but I remember it now.
Dude, there's like over 30 seasons on Hulu.
Oh my gosh. That's
Like,
insane.
dude, they've been doing it for a long time.
It's entertaining. Is war in a cage.
Yeah, exactly.
Bring your best or else.
So Silva's debut was in 2006. They fought Chris Leben, who was on a 5-fight winning streak and was being built up to become like this next big fighter. And Silva came in and knocked him out. So he made his name known in the first fight, which is pretty cool. And it only, oh wait.
I was going to say, how did he do it? How did he knock him out? What was the move?
Yeah, how did he knock him out?
It was a knee strike in only 49 seconds.
God damn.
Yeah, taking flying knee from Silva. I could
Dude, taking a-
imagine plastic surgeons would be waiting, chomping at the bit after his matches, especially in the Vegas area. They're like, Silva's fighting tonight. You know what
Time
that
to make that money.
I'll say that's one thing I don't like about fighting is they train forever for this fight, and then it could end up being 10 seconds, and you're like, it's over. Now what?
Dude, it was that one fight that was like the
Fighting now.
fastest fight ever. It was the Jorge Masvidal and I think Ben Askren. Do y'all remember that fight?
I do not.
Dude, that's the fight where it was over in 3 seconds or something like
Did
that.
they both knock each other out?
No, Jorge Masvidal came in with a flying knee because he knew Ben Askren was a wrestler and he was going to try to take him down. And Jorge Masvidal just sprints at him right when the round starts and knocks him the fuck out with a knee immediately.
Dude, that's how I start the video game of UFC.
Yeah, me too.
I just bring that flying knee initially. Sometimes it works, sometimes it wouldn't, but you got to try. So I respect it. That's an aggressive out the gate move. And he did it. Like he showed it could be done in 3 seconds.
Dude, it was an insane end of the fight. It was over so quick. I think that was the main event of the night too. Could you imagine waiting all night for the main event and then it's just over immediately?
Exactly. Just one hit.
Probably had 10 fights that night, and then the main event just, oh, there it goes.
Exactly.
Had all this time. They probably had an hour and so much set up for this event. And they're out the door by 9 p.m.
Exactly. I think about all the promotion that went into promoting the fight, like the lead up to the fight, the training for the fight, and it's over in 3 seconds.
That's what's worth it for them. They get the money still.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he got knockout of the night, which gives him, I don't know what the bonuses are, but I'm pretty sure that's a bonus in the league.
I think so.
I don't know. I just know there's a knockout bonus, knockout of the night or some shit like that.
There's probably like incentives for them.
For sure.
Yeah, I've never looked into that. if you can incentivize how many strikeouts you can have per season to dictate how much money you make, I'm sure there's something there. Same
Oh,
thing with
well,
rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, receiving touchdowns, passing yards, batting average.
yeah, I'm pretty sure that's in all of those guys' contracts too, because I know for a fact there is one for strikeouts, and
Yeah,
I'm
and
pretty sure all those guys have incentives.
If you're Eddie Lacy, it's weight. Show up to camp like not 280 pounds, please, and we'll give you 50 grand.
It's like 279.
That one still blows my mind. You're a pro football player, and they're going to give you 50 to 100K for showing up with good weight. Like, dog, what you
Exactly. He's not a
you're running
UFC
back.
fighter. Jesus.
What would the James
Run.
Winston incentives be?
Every let's go, he gets 5 grand.
Oh my god.
The guy's a character.
Every time he goes to a seafood restaurant and doesn't steal crab legs.
Oh man.
What does that mean?
His hype talks are unmatched though.
Maybe that's what it is. You got to do 5 hype talks in a week.
Dude, one of my favorite Jameis Winston highlights I think it was when he was back up for the Saints. I don't remember who the starter was. I don't know if it was Drew Brees or not, but the starter gets knocked out. Very first play, Jameis, I think, is supposed to hand the ball off, and there's miscommunication, and he launches up a bomb deep and throws a pick. First play in the game.
Hey,
Yeah.
James would throw a lot of picks, but he would also throw for 350 and 2 touchdowns.
Dude, he threw a good ball. I'll give him that. He throws a good ball.
That one year, I was going to say in Tampa, his first or second year, he would do that. It'd be like 4 picks, 2 touchdowns, 400 yards. You're like, oh,
Yeah. Or it'd be like 4 picks, 4 touchdowns, 400 yards.
Just an insane stat line. Jesus.
I was gonna say it's like my road to glory stat line. 58
Yeah, seriously.
pass attempts, 32 completions, 465 yards, 5 picks, 4 touchdowns, 2 fumbles.
Whatever gets the job done. W's a W.
Yeah, you
All
got
right,
to
let's-
eat that. I mean,
Yeah. Break it down for me, Ryan.
Let's go through his trademark moves. So he had that flying knee, which I would say that's a pretty good trademark move. If you can do that in 49 seconds, might as well throw that one.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so he's big on elbow strikes in the face. And I think that's more so when people are on the ground already, like when he gets them on the ground and then he comes above and then he's almost tackling them from above and then he's elbowing him in the face.
So his
Then
wasn't
he's
really it wasn't really spinning elbows. You know what I mean? Not the spinning back fist, but not the spinning back elbow. Because didn't he do that a couple times too?
He probably did it all, but
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, that's you're right.
yeah, I remember in
mean-
the video game, his mechanics were mean in that one too. With that spinning back elbow.
oh yeah, so much acceleration. You couldn't even block it.
Yeah, dude, not a
Elbows and
chance.
knees, though. That's the best like tool to use, I feel like.
Another one is a body triangle hold, I guess, from the guard position. I'm guessing that's when he's under them and then gets them in a triangle hold. Can you think of that where
Yeah, you can do that with your
grapple? He's under
your
him.
arms and your legs.
Yeah, that was like his main submission technique. I don't remember
He's choking him from behind.
pretty much like I don't even know if it's like a bulldog choke. Have you seen the bulldog choke? I only know it from the video game.
I can't
Would that
remember.
be like the guy would be on top then?
Yeah, similar, but I think the triangle is just like a straight up regular like choke kind of submission.
No, not necessarily. There's a triangle hold where you can use it with your legs on the ground. And
Oh, that too.
you ever
Okay.
been in a triangle hold,
No.
bro? It is miserable. Like, I don't know how when I was a kid I got into some triangle holds, but dude, if you get stuck, you're hurting.
Oh, I bet.
And a lot of
Dude,
times,
any of those submissions.
it's either creating like a triangle with your legs, like a figure 4, and trying to just crush the dude or woman in women's fighting. And you can do a double where you have the legs interlocked around the body and then the arms interlocked around the neck, or you can do it vice versa. So like body triangle hold from the guard position, I believe is more so like Ryan was saying on your back.
Oh, I gotcha.
But yeah, dude, it's not comfortable. It's your body's stressed out everywhere.
Right. Yeah, dude, getting submitted in the UFC sounds like the worst thing. You're not gonna have brain damage necessarily, like from a knockout, but being in a submission, then having to force tap because you feel like something's about to snap.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of like somebody's in an arm triangle or whatever, and you can see their arm just almost going out of socket. It's disgusting.
Yeah,
They-
100%.
You got to risk it for the payday.
Yeah, that's true. So Silva's other trademark is just being very accurate. He's really known for being really accurate with his punches and I guess his kicks too, because he would always throw some deadly kicks to the face. Gotta be accurate to land those.
Yeah, and his body kicks just wore people down. Body kicks, lower limb kicks, which maybe
Foreshadowing.
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 Many of those.
But yeah, dude, he's noted as one of the greatest strikers in the UFC history. His striking is almost unmatched throughout history. It's ridiculous how good he was.
So he fought in the UFC forever. Like his years active in the sport was 1997 to 2020. I don't know how you can do that. Let it go through.
You just keep winning.
Yeah, but still, you're trained, and that alone is going to be a lot of wear and tear on your body.
True. A lot of these guys' injuries do come from training accidents more so than from the fight. A lot of guys obviously get hurt in a fight, but a lot of them also have training accidents or something like that where their body just, especially when you get older, body just starts to break down up from all the stress over the years.
Yeah, but that's where you got to use your training to supplement that to create the longevity of the training too. Clearly, he did that for 23 years. Like, that's the only way he could keep going if he kept up with that training and did proper nutrition timing and getting the proper amount of hydration and macros and everything that leads up to that, all the way down to sleep and even what he's exposed to, oxygen intake, things like that. Probably a lot of tests, blood tests, or just making sure everything's healthy and responsive. And I wonder how many MRIs he had to have within 23 years of being in the MMA, MRI, CTs. Just, that's a lot of time. X-rays even.
Yeah,
X-ray
probably
exposure.
quite a few.
You have to have a lot of x-rays for that to be harmful, like hundreds of thousands almost. But there's some different details with that. But yeah, that's a long career.
Yep. So a long career, which was a successful one. He goes 34 wins, 12 losses. That's pretty good. Wait, nope. 11 losses, 1 no contest. So 34 wins is pretty high up there. And then he's still the record holder in the middleweight class for longest title reign in UFC history at 2,457 days.
And that one no contest, that's from the injury, isn't it?
No, that's considered a TKO, I think.
Is it?
Yeah. Because Connor's counted as a loss when he fought Dustin Poirier and Connor broke his leg. Unless I'm mistaken. I don't know. I don't know what his no contest would be. I mean,
He like, I can't remember if he was still punching him out when that happened.
let me see.
Like
Let me look it
knocking
up.
silly.
You can't punch him.
Oh, wait a second.
It was when he was
Oh,
having his PED scandal. They took his
Yeah.
Nate Diaz fight away. That was the no contest one.
He actually had a win. They dictated a win and then drew back to the PEDs and took it away. They overturned it.
Yeah, because didn't he get banned for what was it? Was it a year or 2 years?
200K for, man, it's a hefty fine for sure. I'm sorry, what was it you asked, Chuck?
How long did he get banned for? What was the ban?
So he was banned for a year. He's sanctioned for a year for the anti-doping violation.
Yeah, for his failed drug test leading up to the Shanghai main event against Kelvin Gastelum.
For a contaminated supplement, which
Yeah, that was the controversy, yeah, because he didn't
why you
even
get-
know that he
that's why you got to get these third-party tested and make sure you
exactly.
know what's in there. Like Ryan and I were talking about Fernando Tatis and the hair deal, like the banned hair supplement.
Is that what that was?
It was something like that for his hair,
Mm.
and he got suspended for it because there was some performance enhancement involved with it. That's like the silliest one.
I was just saying, I know you said that he had the longest reign in UFC history. How many times did he defend the title? How many fights did he actually have during that time?
I defended it 10 times.
That's insane. In a UFC champion's career, a 10-time defender of the title is crazy.
Yeah, it's wild.
Is that equivalent to 10 years within UFC?
I would think so. Isn't it about a year for training?
They usually fight once or twice a year when they're in their prime, I'd say. Could be 2 fights in a year. But 2,457 days, how many years is that? Hang on. That's just over a 6-year span, like nearly 7 years of defending a title. That's pretty damn good, if you ask me.
Yeah, I feel like that's Tiger Woods golf kind of thing for UFC.
No kidding.
I
Yeah,
still think being in the sport that long is a lot.
Yeah, definitely. He had one of the longest careers, that's for sure, compared to most UFC fighters. But now let's get to the main event. So it was going up to the Chris Weidman fight, right?
Yep. In 2013, December 28th, 2013, UFC 168, Anderson Silva, Chris Weidman. Is that how you build it up?
Yeah. Was this the first time they fought each other? Because I know they fought each other twice or something like that.
going back to Fernando Tatis, that was a ringworm medicine. So he's treating a ringworm and it tests positive, which is even more silly, I feel like. Unless his lawyer was like, so you're using it for ringworm. I don't know.
Derek Jeter worm?
The Derek Jeter worm. The Mark McGuire worm. That dude still looks like he'd be the biggest representative for Home Depot. 100%.
He could be in WWE.
He could be in WWE. He could do both, honestly. It's like, I'm Mark McGuire. Whenever I'm using plywood, I use Home Depot.
I throw it over this guy's head.
Or he's just carrying like wooden beams, 20-foot wooden beams through the store. Casual conversation on the right. So when I need help, when I need to fix my home, I go to Home Depot.
All right, I found it. So he did lose his belt to Chris Weidman in their first fight around. And then the one that we're going to be talking about, was actually a second fight with Chris Weidman. So he was trying to basically win back the belt. And yeah,
Did he win it back?
you tell me, Ryan.
So trying to win the belt back, he didn't really give himself a chance. He was trying to give himself a chance, right?
He was trying.
So that wear and tear came into play. Going for a deadly kick to the old leg. Chris Weidman defends it, deflects it, and then ends up being a 2-piece leg on the way back.
Anderson Silva actually got in 2 kicks with 1. It was pretty impressive to see. I've never quite seen it before until Conor McGregor implemented the same strategy against Dustin Poirier. Didn't work out for either of them. But
Connor, didn't he not step back and then break his leg?
Conor stepped back, but I think his leg was already broken.
Is Silva straight up boomerang that leg?
Yeah, that shit was crazy. That was one of
His
the more
leg,
disgusting leg breaks that you've ever will see.
his leg hit the whip and then in that kick. I
That's for
still
sure.
remember. I was at the gym when I saw that thing, and I thought it almost looked fake. I was like, "There's no way," and it was like watching Superman fall to the ground. It
Pretty
like
much.
it
'Cause
almost
yeah,
hurt me watching that.
I know what you mean. But yeah, I think he was trying to pound that leg kick most of the fight. And then, like Ryan was saying, the wear and tear over the years seemed like Anderson Silva's shin had finally had enough before he had a pretty clean break, honestly. He was pretty lucky with the way it broke. But yeah,
100%.
and especially with him stepping back on it and then going down after that. But yeah, once that happened, the fight was over.
And the gravity of that, like amputation,
Yeah,
seriously.
exactly. And that
Really
that started
cool.
the long road to recovery that he now had to go on.
So now that everybody's stomach's queasy, what
Let's
do you
get
say
into
to the emergency tips on
the
removing a amputated leg that's inside your skin still?
In case you ever see a leg completely wrap around something like a bendy straw, this is what you should do.
Great segue, guys. Thank you. So the official injury was what they call a tib-fib fracture, which is a fracture of the tibia and fibula, which is the 2 main bones in the lower part of your leg below the knee. And I think the worst part of it was really when he stepped back on it. And overall, I can't stress enough how lucky he was with the way the injury turned out. Because like they were just saying, it was almost like an amputation. The leg was basically just being held together by skin, according to the doctor.
Shout out to Paul George and Kevin Ware.
Exactly. Very similar injuries. Luckily, though, Anderson Silva's was a closed fracture, not an open fracture like those. And I'll get to
Kevin
those
Ware.
in a
Yeah.
second. Yeah.
We all know that image still ingrained in our brain.
Dude, that was a wicked one. That and Paul George. But so immediately after the injury, after the doctor rushed to their side, he went in, had surgery, and had a metal rod stuck into the tibia. And the doctor actually concluded that the fibula would be able to heal on its own. So that was the aftermath there. But before I get into exactly what the emergency team did following like the first few minutes afterwards and what someone who's not medically trained can do, I was going to ask a few questions.
And essentially, if it was just the fibula, worst case scenario, he's in a boot for a while. But the tibia is what is like the cherry on top of this and what makes it so unique and gruesome, devastating.
Definitely. The tibia is definitely the worst bone to break in that kind of situation. So before I tell you guys what to do, what would you guys do? So you see you're ringside at the Anderson Silva fight. You see his snap like that. What do you think you should do immediately?
Find bubble wrap.
Not a bad idea. Not the worst
It's
idea.
pretty close to the air cast. But yeah, just making sure that the skin's not broken for one, and just trying to create some alignment and checking for stabilization, of course. Of course, you see it break, but just trying to get it aligned, stable, and immobile to be able to transport.
Exactly. You
Thanks.
both definitely have the right idea.
Did you give Silva anything, or do you think his adrenaline is up enough where he wouldn't need anything?
Oh, 100%. You're giving him something. Like with you're first thing you're doing really is stabilizing the injury, making sure it doesn't get any worse, making sure that he does have blood flow below the fracture. Because with the lack of blood flow, that is what presents the biggest worry, because that eventually is what could cause the need of an amputation. So those are the first big main concerns. But once you've stabilized the leg, once you've splinted it, once it's good to go and you got him in the back of the ambulance, oh yeah, definitely give this man some pain meds, because when that adrenaline wears off, he's not going to be feeling too hot.
So are you checking for capillary refill like through the feet when something like that happens, especially as like an EMT? Are you checking in the back of the automobile on the way to the hospital repetitively for blood flow? Like, how do you capture that as a
Yeah,
tech or somebody in that situation on the medical team?
definitely. And I will get into it a little bit more. I was going to go through a couple more things to test your basic knowledge out real quick, and then I'll get into that side of things. So, next thing I was going to see if you guys knew, what's the difference between a closed and an open fracture?
Closed and open, I always think displacement and also if the skin's broken. So compound, especially skin's broken, that shit, like you can see the bone or blood, or if it's closed, then you can essentially see the bone broken, but the skin is intact. The skin's not pierced or there's no blood showing on the scene. You essentially just see the bone is for sure broken, which shout out to, once again, what we've talked about before, that old TV show Scarred, because that's what taught me that essentially growing up
Dude,
as like
Scarred
an
was
10-year-old.
gnarly.
Like,
Yeah,
compound, non-compound.
exactly. Ryan, any better guess? Or do you think
I
he nailed it?
like that one. He nailed it.
Okay. He did. So again, the main thing is is the skin broken or not? So if it is broken, it's considered an open fracture. If it's not, it's considered a closed fracture. That's the main difference between those. And why potentially would an open fracture be worse? Ryan, I'll let you go first.
There's not as much stabilization because obviously there's going to be some blood going probably. And if it's not intact, then I hate being on the spot. But
It's okay.
yeah, but
No, just tell me what you think. You're good. You're
well,
on the right
it's
track.
attached to one side of the skin. So it's going to be dangling on that side heavily. And then if it's still, say it would be connected to something else, maybe it can make it worse. Or that's what I would say is it would make it worse than it being a closed one because of stabilization.
Gotcha. Okay. Tyler.
Almost every single time too, if it is displaced, it's going to require hardware, which on the surgical side, there's a little bit more things you got to worry about, like infection, and the healing process is just that much more complicated. And you look at Alex Smith's injury, dude almost lost his leg. JJ Watt landing on his leg and snapping it pretty much in half. And then also Zach Miller on the Bears, that gruesome leg injury as well, ended his career. Alex Smith, no clue how he comes back, but he freaking did it. Mine's insane. Credit to him on the mental work he did through that process, because no offense, but his leg looked like cauliflower at some point. Like, how can you go from running like a 4.5 40 to looking down and your leg's like almost not a leg anymore? But in Zach Miller's case, like arterial damage, they almost had to completely amputate his leg in this similar instance of a non-displaced fracture. But you talk about the gravity of Anderson Silva being so lucky that he's able to come back and fight. You got football players that it typically ended their career or like completely drastically changed their lifestyle and their career.
Yeah, dude. That moment when Alex Smith stepped back onto the field was really a really cool moment to see. That did, and his legs still. I'm surprised that man can even walk, let alone he got back in and played in the NFL again. That was really something special to see.
And it's almost like an open study on like, how is he going to be 10 years from now? How is he going to be 5 years from now? So I imagine he's doing checkups quite a bit, just to make sure, one, he's not getting sepsis or something
Yeah.
like compromises his immune system, especially with, I'm not sure if he has carbon fiber or like some type of stainless steel implanted in his leg, but I'm sure he has to have it like all the time.
For sure. You're talking about Alex Smith, right? Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I'm not sure
and
what he has in his leg.
I know they put hardware in for Anderson Silva, but I believe they were able to take it out like over time, building up bone density, bone healing, calcification, but sometimes not always necessarily the case.
Yeah. But the one big thing that you did say, the main reason an open fracture can be potentially a lot worse than a closed one is the risk of infection.
Right.
That's the main big like thing that you want to look out for when comparing a closed and open fracture. The risk of
Yeah.
infection is just so much higher whenever you have exposed skin and exposed bone and just everything else.
And can you break down sepsis for listeners?
Yes.
Viewers.
So I'd be happy to break that down. So basically sepsis is basically when an infection just gets out of control and it you can go into septic shock in different emergency situations and it's not necessarily rapid and it's not always doesn't always take a long time to form, but that's always a huge concern whenever there is an infection present that they could go septic, which is deadly to a person in general because then your organs can start to shut down. But essentially what happens is the infection gets out of control, it gets into the bloodstream, and it basically causes inflammation all over the body, which eventually leads to organ failure.
Right.
So
That's
that is the main
correct.
concern again with an open fracture and infection and again possibly going septic. That's the main thing that you 100% want to avoid if you can whenever you get into the hospital setting, which is why
Which
and the basic treatments for that is to if someone's going septic is basically just pump them full of antibiotics and things like that and keep them hydrated. That way their immune system can still fight off the infection, but at the same time, that way the infection doesn't continue to spread through the bloodstream.
and one of the like the big things to look out for if you ever are curious or if something's just not healing, which especially for the older population too, yeah, look out for low blood pressure, body chills, like dizziness, fatigue, fever, lower body temperature, shivering. That's just like initial signs. So if you're experiencing something similar after a traumatic event or an illness and things just aren't recovering or healing, then see a medical professional because that
100%.
could be life threatening.
Exactly. All right. I think I'll move on to what exactly they did and then what people out there can do that aren't necessarily medical professionals, which isn't a whole lot, which is the theme of the show. Main thing is to wait for medical professionals to show up, but there is a few things that you can check on and make sure before they arrive. But what they most likely did right when the injury occurred. So just to break down the injury one more time, it looked like it was like a transverse or an oblique fracture of the leg. They're both very clean kind of breaks. I couldn't tell from the x-rays which one it was exactly, but a transverse is basically just a horizontal break straight across. An oblique is another clean fracture, but it's more at it's more at an angle like diagonal across the bone. So it was one of those. And the main symptoms you're going to see whenever you're going to be assessing if someone has a fracture, obviously in certain situations like Anderson Silva, it's going to be more obvious to the naked eye than some. But the main symptoms are going to be pain, tenderness, deformity, discoloration, paresthesia, anesthesia. Paresthesia is essentially just a numb, tingly feeling. Anesthesia is loss of feeling. Paresis, which is restricted movement, paralysis, which is no movement, and then decreased pulse amplitude, typically below the site or distal is the correct medical term to
Right.
the site of the fracture.
Away from the head, proximal
Exactly.
close to the head.
Exactly.
But could you imagine
So
trying to walk after a break like that? Like it just gave me,
he
gave me the
tried.
chills. It
He
gave me the
tried.
chills.
Dude, that would be
Said
horrible.
paresthesia, anesthesia, and paresis, and I literally like shook. You could literally you rewind that and see me shake a little bit.
It's a gnarly injury. But yeah, in this type of injury, you always want to assess the 6 Ps. I'm going to see if you guys can guess what those are. Give me one, Tyler.
Pain,
Nailed it. Ryan.
passion.
Over one, Tyler.
You got them right here. It's paralysis, paresthesia,
Well,
pressure.
quit looking at it. I'm testing you guys. All right, fine. But yeah, pain, pallor, which is again disc that you'll see if there's a lack of blood flow, paralysis, paresthesia, pressure, and then pulses. Those are all the things that you want to assess.
So how are you checking pulse if you're an EMT in this situation for the lower extremity?
Again, you're gonna want to do this. You can do this before you try to line it up or set it. You probably want to do it before and after, but essentially you're just checking a pulse location, again, distal to the fracture area. So in this case, you would check the pedal pulse, which is right on top of the foot. That would be
Okay.
your best bet at finding a pulse and seeing it. And if you don't feel anything, that's obviously a problem. But that's the pulse location site that you would look for.
So do you ever do ankle brachial index tests in the case like that?
Break that down for me.
That's where you compare the blood pressure to the upper extremity to the lower extremity.
But you can, but in emergency situations, you want to be as quick as possible. So most
Right.
likely you're just checking the foot, see if there's one there. If there's one there, it's okay. And you can, based on if you've done it enough, obviously, you can feel if it's weak or not. But you're just feeling for that amplitude and making your best assumption. But main thing is you want to see if it's there or not. Because if it's not there, you got a more serious problem on your hands.
Oh, 100%. What is your first step if you notice it's not there? Like you're in the ambulance, levels start to drop, function is starting to decrease.
If you're already in the ambulance, chances are you probably already have it splinted. So then if here, I'll go through the steps and then I'll get to that.
100%.
So according to the guy that was ringside, it was a major UFC event. They got medical staff on board, obviously. For them, it was fairly easy to see what happened. It was easy for them to determine the MOI, which stands for mechanism of injury.
Mhm.
And again, first thing you want to do is check to see if it's closed or open, see if there's any major bleeding, bandage and tourniquet if it's appropriate. Next, you want to, if with a clear deformity like Anderson Silva, you want to immobilize the leg as soon as possible, have the guy stop moving around if he's thrashing, and check for distal pulses. That's when you would check there and see what's going on. Now, if the pulse is weak or absent, that could be for a number of reasons. One, things could just be compressing the arteries or the veins. That way the blood isn't getting through. Or it could even be worse. You have serious arterial damage, possible internal bleeding, serious soft tissue damage, things like that. That's when it becomes a really bad situation. So
Would
the
that
main
be
goal
the
here,
tourniquet?
if there's bleeding, but if it's a closed fracture and there's no like major bleeding out, it's hard to determine internal bleeding from an emergency side. So
Right.
a tourniquet might not be appropriate there. If
Definitely
there's
not
like
in this case.
yeah. So again, it depends on the situation. But
So I was thinking that's when like limb is at loss. We're busting the tourniquet out to save your life, essentially.
the main thing there is you want blood flow. So it's hard to determine internal bleeding if there's arterial damage. But if you don't feel a pedal pulse and you can't determine that there's internal bleeding, you still want blood flow to the area.
100%.
So the main goal here is to stabilize and transport. That way, if there is internal bleeding or if there's arterial damage, you want them to get into surgery and have that fixed as fast as possible to try and save the leg.
Yeah, it's urgent. Like you're getting right to the table as quick as you can.
Exactly. So again, stabilize, transport fast as possible. And then after you've checked pulse, and basically what they teach, at least basics, whenever you have a fracture like this, you really get one shot to line it up and to splint it. And if there's things present like increased pain, increased tenderness, increased crepitus, which is basically just the grinding of the bones. If you feel that or anything else like that, you stop immediately because you could be just doing more damage than good you're doing. Especially if there is a pulse. If there is a pulse and you try to straighten it out and it's just not working and it's just causing more pain and you feel the grinding of the bones, I would just stop, splint it the way it is, and transport as fast as you can.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head for sure.
Yeah. And then before and after you apply the splint, again, we're checking pulses, we're checking motor function, and we're checking sensation. So again, we've gone over how to check the pulses. To assess motor function, you ask the injured person to push on your hand with their foot, pull, and I'm assuming obviously Anderson Silva couldn't do a whole lot. So there's going to not be a whole lot of motor function with him. And then sensation. Is it numb? Is it tingling? Do you not feel anything? And there's a couple different ways to do that. If it's completely numb and he's saying he doesn't feel anything, a good way that I was taught, you can get a pin, put it
Yeah.
on the big toe, on the toenail, and press hard. And if they don't react, that means they have no feeling, because that does not feel very good.
It's like a complete ortho exam or a neurologic exam. Have you seen like the spur looking devices? I can't remember.
Yeah, I have.
But it's almost for the same thing to,
Testing if it's numb. Yeah.
testing numbness, nerve reaction, responsiveness, things like that, which in some cases I've seen you use that and people haven't responded to. It is a good tool to use in a more serious case. I
Yeah.
mean, in all cases, just to make sure, because that can really dictate how things are operating within the spine and the nervous system overall.
For sure. And again,
Inflammatory systems.
yeah. And again, in an
Inflammatory
emergency,
responses.
you're good. And again, in an emergency setting, you might not have all these tools at your disposal. It just depends on what your truck is equipped with. Main thing that you're trying to do is stabilize and move. So
Yeah.
that's all. Checking like all that extra stuff too is mainly for the hospital setting as well. But if you have that tool available, it still could be handy in this situation as well.
And
But
simple pinch works too.
exactly, that's
Somebody with your nails or something.
exactly. So once you've applied the splint, you've checked all that before and after, you're already in the back of the ambulance. Now you're transporting. You're going to apply some cold packs to the area to reduce pain and swelling, elevate the affected area if possible. If it's just causing more pain and discomfort, just leave it the way it is. And then again, transport rapidly.
Elevating, you're keeping above the heart, right?
Yeah, that's the goal. So again, just some rules of splinting to go over real quick whenever you have situations like this. But that's most likely what they did, and that's pretty much exactly what it sounds like they did at the UFC event. But some rules of splinting: you want to immobilize the joints above and below the injury site. That way, so essentially he can't move his ankle, can't move his knee. You don't want any kind of movement at all. If there's any clothing or jewelry around the site of injury, you want to remove it. Cover all wounds with sterile bandages before splinting. And then with severe deformities like this one, you want to apply manual traction and attempt to realign once. And I already went over that a little bit. So again, if there's any other issues when you're trying to do that, you want to stop. And if the injury is a joint injury, you typically don't want to attempt to fix the deformity because arteries and major nerves run through those areas, and that could just increase injury severity. You want to wait for those until you get to the hospital.
Describe traction for people that might not understand what that means in the medical term.
Yeah, traction, to go over that a little bit. All it is basically like a gentle pulling motion. So in this case, with the leg, you want to grab below the injury site, probably around the foot or ankle area, and then gently pull it to try to realign. And then you want to hold that manual traction while the splint is applied. That's just the basic idea of it.
Makes me feel weak in my limbs.
Yeah, I bet it does. Then there's there's tons of different splints out there. There's rigid pressure, which is just a basic air one, just a regular traction one, a formable one, a vacuum one, sling and swath that I'm sure most people are familiar with. and just different things along those lines. But I got another question for you. So, why would improper splinting potentially be an issue?
Man, of course, risk of further displacement, arterial damage. Is venous damage a thing? Like if you're resetting?
Yeah, anything that's running through the leg can be damaged, any kind of soft tissue.
Yeah, even if it's maybe nerve damage, I feel like a lot of different things that go into play there with the surrounding tissue, nerves, veins, arteries. So, yeah, definitely take some caution.
Yeah,
You want
again, if you don't know what you're doing, I would not attempt it.
to be like your local barber and just be like, hop on the seat.
Yeah. And any potential issues that you could think of?
Are you just like guessing where to put it? Obviously, there's two bones, right?
Yeah. You have a general idea.
Yeah. So, how do you know if it is improper or not?
If it's loose, if it's cutting off circulation because it's too tight. Yeah,
Ah,
they cut.
gotcha. You just told me the answer.
Yeah, okay. I'll let that one slide.
Look
You
at this
got that
guy.
one. You got that one past me. One other thing too that you do want to look out for when dealing with like fractures of this caliber, it can potentially lead to what they call compartment syndrome, which is essentially a condition where the affected cells become hypoxic, which basically just means that they lack oxygen. And that's due to a lack of blood flow, which can increase swelling and leakage of the capillaries, which basically, if it was his leg, it would just look like his leg is profusely sweating and extremely swollen. And that itself can lead to cell death, resulting in loss of muscle, nerves, and other soft tissue in the area, which again could also potentially lead to amputation. So that's one serious kind of syndrome that could happen from fractures as well.
Which treatment of compartment syndrome is a fasciotomy. So they actually have to take out the tissue.
Dude, dude, a fasciotomy is gnarly too.
The images are disgusting.
Dude, basically to relieve pressure off the skin, they just cut your leg to open it up. Dude, it's wild. Have you seen, they do it a lot too for very severely burned victims,
Yeah.
but they have to do it in like a zigzag pattern. Say your whole torso is burned, like front and back. They have to do that. Otherwise, the swelling, it's going to do the same thing. It's going to cause compartment syndrome. And they essentially have to cut on the burned tissue in like a zigzag pattern. It's wild.
It almost
Dude.
seems like a little medieval, doesn't it?
Yeah, but modern day, it's I guess the best they can do.
It's crazy. That's like the main option from what I've seen nowadays. I feel like there's got to be a better approach. I don't understand.
Surgery is the best. I don't. Dude, if you have to get a fasciotomy, like that area of your body is fucked.
Nowadays, there are stem cell patches that could heal the skin and the tissue through the amniotic fluid that is in stem cell that can heal the skin at a faster rate. So I'm curious if that would be an option for a case like that to try before going into a fasciotomy.
Potentially, I don't know. I haven't done a whole lot of stem cell research, but
I feel like it'd be worth it because is it that why Alex Smith's leg looks the way it does right now?
I don't
From fasci-
know. I
yeah,
haven't done I haven't done a lot of research on Alex Smith, so I don't exactly know what they did, but that
that
would make
documentary
sense.
is insane.
Oh, I bet. I'm sure we'll do an episode on him in the future.
We
But
all need to watch that documentary if we haven't yet. It's inspiring. It's intense. Just the process he goes through.
oh
It's
yeah. All right. But anyway, so that kind of wraps up what the experts will do. So for the non-professionals, main thing you're going to do until the medical team arrives, just calm the patient down, minimize the movement as much as possible. Also, if the skin is broke, it's an open fracture, don't touch it. Don't try to do anything with it, and just do your best to keep dirt or anything else around out of the wound site, because again, that could lead to infection. Do your best to keep the patient distracted, alert, talking to you. Also, if it is an open fracture and you do see bone protruding, even as a medical expert, if you ever see anything out of the body, do not try to replace it or push it back in. Leave it alone and just get it to the hospital. And then you just make note of what happened. Do some basic things like ask them where it hurts, when the injury occurred, make a little note of that, and then ask the person what they felt when it happened. If it isn't an obvious deformity like Anderson Silva, maybe even ask some other people around who saw it if you didn't see it, like what they saw, and just go from there. Gather as much information as you can to relay to the medical team. That way they can do their job in just a more efficient and better way. And that's essentially the main thing that you can do for as a non-professional, just while you're waiting. Then I had a question for you guys, and I'm going to Venmo somebody $5 if they can get both of these right.
That's big time.
Yeah. It's for your sports betting addictions. Anyway.
Easy. Only wrong if it doesn't work.
You got a good point.
Yes, it's wrong.
There are Mama's wrong again. No, Colonel Sanders, you're wrong. Mama's right. All right. Ryan, I'm gonna let you get the first crack at it.
All right.
There are two bones in the body that, if fractured, they're what is considered critical fractures. What do you think those two bones are?
Spine and femur.
Okay. Tyler?
I was going to say C1 and femur.
You both got the same one right, but you didn't get the other one. So you got the femur. Last chance. Any other guesses? I'll give you one hint. It has nothing to do with the spine.
Does that count?
Ryan?
I guess that counts.
You got another guess?
No.
Okay.
I'm going to say something with the hips.
Close.
Pelvis isn't a bad answer, though.
The pelvis is the correct answer. It's the pelvis and the femur. The reason is because those are the two major bones in the body that have the most blood. So if you break one of those, that could potentially cause the most internal bleeding, especially in the pelvic region. It could potentially take medical experts and doctors, even in a hospital setting, to know that there's internal bleeding. It could take them a long time to figure that out because there's so much area in the pelvis. There's so much room for blood to go that it's hard to see until it's like really severe. And then the femur, again, high blood flow type area, just as that breaking that major of a bone can cause those same kind of issues.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna Venmo myself.
Thoroughly.
No.
Know yourself. Enjoy that.
Got one. So daily double.
All right, I'll ask another question here in a little bit, and I'll give you guys another shot.
Oh my gosh.
But that is the end of the emergency medicine side. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Tyler, to give us what to expect from the rehab standpoint after Silva's gone through all his surgeries and whatnot, and what to expect if you have something like this happen.
All righty. How we doing?
Chuck's crushing cokes lately.
Yeah, 12 a day right now.
Dude, I'm fucking tired.
Like ripping packs of cigs.
You're not wrong. That's what it feels like at this point. Just straight sugar.
Podcast I listened to today was saying that having a can like dip in a week is equivalent to smoking a pack of cigs in a day, like every day.
Jesus.
Wow.
They're just crazy, right?
Good thing I only do Zins.
I don't know if that was the nicotine equivalent or tobacco equivalent.
I don't know. That's a weird comparison because I feel like smoking is still worse for you.
Yeah, I think they were saying like the mode of application is what makes it more dangerous. And I think the mucosal membrane in the mouth absorbed it faster why it's a little more threatening for like peripheral arteries and COPD and cardiovascular disease, you name it. But yeah, no, I was like, 1 can equals a pack a day? That's hard to wrap my mind around.
That's a lot.
It's a lot,
Yeah, that's
too much.
all right. Break this down for me.
We talking rehab?
Yeah, we talking rehab.
Rehab recovery for the injury of Anderson Silva on December 28th, 2013, UFC 168. Anderson Silva was one of the most revered figures in mixed martial arts, UFC. This injury was, you saw it and you knew. Like I said, it was like watching Superman collapse to the ground from kryptonite. It's hard to wrap your mind around what was taking place and what happened. And it just something you don't see every day. Your mind is not exposed to the visuals that happen in an event like this. So major props to the medical professionals that are able to remain calm in situations like this and be able to respond appropriately, efficiently, effectively, and save a limb, a life, or prevent infection. Because it's startling. You just don't see injuries take place like this. When Silva attempted the left leg kick, it was checked by, is it Weidman? Weidman?
Yes, I think it's
Weidman.
Weidman.
So Weidman checked the kick, and right when he checked the kick with his lower extremity, Silva's leg wrapped around that thing like a sticky hand. Like,
Tetherball.
just, yeah, tetherball. He was in the courtyard and shot a shot and ended up in a tibia and fibula fracture. It shocked the world, honestly, because everybody was like, is he ever going to fight again? But really struck fire in him. And the rehab is where the mental work's done, as well as the physical work to be able to get back into the fighting and just triumph something like this that takes place. Is a very traumatic position in your life that you have to respond to. It takes the right mindset, like we always talk about. You have to go in thinking like you are going to get better after this. You're going to have better quality of life. You can come back better too. You can perform better after an injury like this. So you got to have the right mindset going into things. And that's for a lot of different facets of life. But immediately after, of course, stabilization took place. I can't remember if they used an air cast or not. Do y'all remember if they did?
I don't remember exactly what kind of splint they used, but I know they splinted it though.
Yeah, they got to stabilize and immediately responded. Dr. Stephen Sanders, orthopedic surgeon, led the procedure. Surgery involved the insertion of an intramedullary rod into Silva's tibia to stabilize the bone. Like we talked about, the fibula was fine and could heal on its own. So tibia was the main thing. To create that stabilization, let the bone calcify, become solid, get Silva strong and back to where he needed to be. So the rod was inserted into the bone marrow, and oh my goodness, bone marrow canal of the tibia, which I am trying to wrap my mind around that too. This is
That makes
making
me squirm.
my feet feel weak. Just that sensation of a rod going up into the middle of the bone. Imagine what it feels like having a bone marrow transplant or donating bone marrow, and then comparing that to a rod going into that bone marrow cavity or canal. That's pretty intense. Shout out to the surgeons again. Shout out to technology and where it's come to, and that we're able to do these things, create support, alignment, and healing to get the process going to get back on our feet. Screws were for sure placed to secure the rod and maintain correct positioning of the bone, fragments of the bone too. So if there's a point where a bone shatters, that is, we talk about the pelvis being pretty scary situation to have a fracture. Imagine a shattered pelvis and what a surgeon has to do and approach. That's a lot of different things. to take account of, whether that's arterial damage, venous damage, bowel function, GI function, renal function, so on and so forth, infection, sepsis. But going back to the injury, the kind of surgery is typical for fractures. It helps stabilize the bones, allows for earlier mobilization compared to other methods like casting. So the goal is to hopefully speed up the process, get on your feet faster and heal faster. Since the injury was so severe, the rehab process is extensive and intensive. It's divided into several phases: immediate post surgery phase, early rehab phase, progressive weight bearing, which is challenging for the brain and the body. That takes some time to get used to response, making sure there's a response, a reaction, pain response, paralysis, like you talked about before. And then we go into advanced rehabilitation, psychological rehabilitation, which I believe takes place in every single step in the initial phase of the injury taking place too. Because imagine just injury takes place, you look down and your legs bent at a 90-degree angle and you can't stand up. It's an immediate shock. What are y'all thinking in that mode? Let's say you're swinging a baseball bat, you dislocate your knee and your knee is bent the other way.
I'm walking it off.
It's in 280 degrees of extension.
I'm almost hoping I pass out.
A lot of people do.
Agreed. No, dude, I'm sure I've told you the story before, Tyler, about the one kid I saw. He was this chubby little kid. He was rounding third, and we were playing on a really shitty baseball field, and home plate was not like flush with the ground. It was a little out.
Ooh.
He comes in just like a jump slide, and his cleat catches home plate. I'm in the bullpen warming up, and I'm just watching the play happen. This kid screams, and then he holds his leg in the air, and his foot is like the other way, like a full 180. And I'm just like, oh, shit.
I can completely picture that too.
Dude, it was nasty. And it took the ambulance like 40 minutes to get there.
So he's just laying there.
He's laying there screaming almost the entire time.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, dude, like Ryan said, at that point, I'm like, dude, like I want to just get knocked the fuck out. I just want to pass out so bad.
No kidding. That makes me think of Dak Prescott too, and his fracture, his injury against the Giants.
Yeah, that was pretty nasty too. It's the ankle that's a bad one. But it's so weird how many times you see an ankle injury like that and how guys can sometimes just pop it back into place.
It bounced right back. Dak's playing probably better than he ever has after that injury, which is insane.
Yeah, definitely. But I can also speak on the psychological part of the rehabilitation, because whenever I had Tommy John, that was probably the hardest part for me, is like the mental state. Like it just took so long and it wasn't going well. And yeah, it just sucked. I was not in a happy place during that time.
You actually have to force yourself to be hungry, to want to get better. It's a different grind. Like you have to force yourself to do stuff that you know you're going to be uncomfortable doing. And you got to be okay
100%.
with it. You got to find calm within the chaos.
Definitely.
But going back to immediate post-surgery phase, pain management, if you got to knock the fuck out, I guess that's an option. If it makes you feel better.
Yeah.
So pain relief medication, usually initial response, morphine, right? I would imagine they're administering morphine or some sort of sedative painkiller. One, to allow the surgeons and doctors to do what they need to do, anesthesia, make sure the patient's not like convulsing or like jumping off the table, making things worse. So managing pain relief, manic cases. This is actually initially right after the injury happened, what I'm discussing, but post-surgical pain, also pain relief too. So getting comfortable, huge. Initial healing, you want to focus on allowing the bones to begin the healing process without undue stress. So you're probably on a little scooter or you're on some crutches, wheelchair, not putting a whole lot of pressure on the thing. You're getting a lot of assistance from family, hopefully friends, if that's available to you. Otherwise, there's like ride shares now that help out with these kind of things, I believe. Like even Medicare, I think will have people pick you up and take you to places you need to go to live your day to day. But just different things to think about if you are on a scooter or crutches or wheelchair, just something to assist you without putting excessive stress to make things worse. So making sure you're not getting on your feet too soon is pretty pivotal in a situation like this. Early rehabilitation phase, non-weight bearing exercises. So usually my approach is I always like to check to see what a patient can do without pain, essentially. So if they're able to drive their knees up or even create a cycling like motion with very low resistance, I think that's a huge plus. A lot of things done in the supine position on their back or on their front, just creating motion overall and trying to improve blood flow and also get their heart rate up while creating motion too. I think is big for muscle tone, flexibility, surrounding tissue to start conditioning. And also, like we talked about, putting minimal stress. So even if it's like a straight leg raise or an ankle pump, ankle circles, like sideline hip abduction, sideline hip adduction. Some people say abduction, adduction. I've always known it as ab and ad, but to each their own. However you identify that, it's a huge plus. If you can do that through like banded exercises, that's a huge plus because usually if you're just trying to create hip external, internal rotation, anything you can do through the lower extremity to create movement without excessive stress, I think is a big plus. Getting some sort of tissue activation going, stimulating the nervous system overall. Starting out gentle, of course, because you want to make sure you're not overdoing it, making matters worse, especially immediately post-op. Surgeon's going to be on you. You want those follow-ups, those check-ins to make sure like we are healing in the right route. You're not messing up where I place this rod or how I did my surgery. So you got to keep that in mind too. You don't want to try and start pushing people and then you make matters worse and then they have to go in for another surgery or some sort of infection takes place. You also got to think about like excessive sweat and making sure you're cleaning the area too after something like this, especially after rehab. Like some things you can't necessarily open the wound or you just got to keep everything clean for the most part, but you want to get some sort of tissue activation, some sort of blood flow going, challenge the heart rate a little bit within reason to where it's not taxing the system or putting too much stress on the system as well. And that's usually the early rehab phase. A lot of people tend to be super tight. Of course, there's a lot of inflammatory responses going on post-op. Body has no idea what's going on almost. It's got to adapt to a new stainless steel or whatever type of material, carbon fiber, whatever it may be, rod inserted into the bone marrow canal. So that's almost getting your nervous system to completely adapt to what's taking place. And sometimes it rejects it or tries to reject, whether that be like screws, rods, whatever's taking place in the system, then that could create further issues, infections. You could even say some sort of pus could be leaking.
What
It
do
just
they
on the
what
type of fracture too.
what do they typically do if the body does reject, say, the rod or the screws or something like that?
I believe in relation to Alex Smith's case, they had to completely go back in
They
and
just
redo
redo it?
surgery. I'm not completely 100% on that, but that's what it sounded like
That
from
makes sense
previous
because I
things
mean,
I've heard of. Because if it's not stabilizing bone or the joint, then it's not doing its job. Then you have to almost completely redo the approach, which makes things like, oh, this was an 80% success rate. Now it's going to be 65.
Yeah, because you basically have to do the surgery again, recut into that soft tissue, reopen old wounds, and yeah, that just sounds like worst case scenario if the body does reject anything like that.
And then you got to think of ablations or like suturing arteries and veins back together. Have just a bunch of different things that these surgeons are all 100% on top of that might not be as detailed on in our approach. But let's say you have surgery one, fail, surgery two, fail. Now that surgery three is looking like 40% chance of success. After that, you might be losing your leg.
Yeah, it makes me think of that one guy. I think he pitched for the A's. He had, I think I might be doing one more than was the real number, but I think he ended up having 4 Tommy John surgeries fairly consistently after, like, he rehabbed one, it happened again and again. And it's just like you're talking about now. Every surgery that you have, the success rate continues to go down the more you need.
And it's not always going to be like in game is amputation. Of course, if it's like ACL, MCL, meniscus, that's completely different. But for a fracture case, it's a little bit more complicated if it has multiple failures in terms of the surgical setting. And that's where we also got to think of infection too. Because if you are in that septic phase and healing slows down quite a bit, which then puts you in a more threatening situation. But that's why the early rehab phase is so important so that you can gradually get to that point where you can move without pain, non-weight bearing, see some progress, see some symptom reduction, see some strength regain. Of course, we're not going to be sprinting right away or like biking at high intensity intervals for 20 minutes, but we're going to try and create some motion and some response
Yeah.
to reduce inflammation overall and get the system operating how it needs to, get it back into more of its equilibrium or like getting back to a normal circadian rhythm, you could say. But eventually, after you're seeing a lot of progress with non weight bearing, pain reduction is going down, you're seeing strength come back, maybe numbness and tingling is going away, sharpness is going away, shooting's going away. You might feel some dullness. You might experience some small sharpness, but nothing to make you jump off the table type pain. You're going to start going into more weight bearing, which depending on the case and depending on the surgeon or the approach of physical therapy, sometimes that could be as quick as maybe 2 to 3 weeks, but it just depends on the case. Seeing one where an ATV rolled over somebody's ankle and completely compound fractured the ankle, and it took like almost 4 to 6 weeks to be able to walk without excruciating symptoms taking place. And sometimes it's trial and error without overdoing it, essentially, because I like to challenge people, but also not push to the point of excessive pain scale. If there's tears coming out, we're not doing that anymore. We got to change the game plan. So,
Yeah, because a little pain is okay, but you really don't want them to be in such severe pain that just again, they're crying like you're saying.
and if it's brief, severe pain, that shouldn't be enough to be like, oh, we just did something completely wrong to the case. And now we got to think about surgery number two.
Yeah.
Not always the case. That's just indicate where we're at in the process. But it's cool once you see that gradual load being placed in, and then you can see somebody start to maneuver on their feet and start to gain that strength. And then they start to gain quickness back and just that foot to eye dexterity or hand to eye dexterity increase, just tolerance increase overall. Then that opens so many doors because then you can start really challenging the system, building strength a lot faster. And it just speeds the healing process so much more. And then that's where the mental benefit starts to come in too, because then they're like, oh, I can do this now. I'm not super restricted or limited like I thought I was going to be beforehand. So it's awesome to see from both sides, like those doors open back up. But you just have to really closely monitor the situation. You can't just, here's your exercises and then go off for 30 minutes and check back and see how they're doing. No, you got to be like there for every single rep and talking with the patient and making sure we're getting proper responses each and every time, whether that's for set of 4, set of 6, set of 8, 20, 30, 50.
Because the last thing you want
And,
them to do is just re-injure themselves because they do something wrong and you're not paying attention to them.
and then they're like, oh, I thought I was just supposed to push through it. No, not this case. And if that's the case for them, they got the right mindset. They're willing to push through something like that. But I'm comparing to more severe. If somebody was just pushing through and it ended up being a lot more emergent than it should, which is very rare. That's a high pain tolerance.
Yeah, definitely.
But as you progressively get into weight bearing, strength training, of course, becomes pretty key. Like you don't want to stray from the basics. Basics like just being able to operate on your feet, high knees, side shuffles, being able to transfer weight to the balls or the heels of your feet, lateral movement overall, anterior to posterior movement, even rotation. So like pivoting, things like that. Of course, if there is like a spiral fracture, we're not going to get right into pivoting. Like no shot.
Because
We're
then
gonna
you're just
try
going to
and-
make it worse.
yeah, that would probably be a little more phase 3, phase 4, like tail end rehab, where you get a little more advanced. So progressive weight bearing, seeing where we can do basic movements, like your functional patterns overall, whether that be like a squat, a lunge, or a hinge. And then you're not going to do this initially, but a lot of people like the Bosu balls and balance pads to reiterate stability and get that tissue contraction, even if it is just balancing on one foot, because that's major. If you can balance on one foot for 10 to 15 seconds while getting to weight bearing, like a weight bearing phase in this situation, that's a huge step. That means your supporting muscles are activating and stabilizing, and things are looking like they're on the right track. So if a PT or somebody, OT, DC, SNC, you name it, AT, EP, if they're challenging you with just a single leg standing exercise, there's a lot more that's going into it than just seeing if you can stand. They want to get that tissue contraction for sure. And then, of course, medication is there to help with the symptoms, the soreness, recovery. You might have some nutritional counseling too within the process. You might even have some medical follow-ups just to make sure everything's healing as well as it should be, especially with orthos or your surgeon. Maybe you check in with the family care clinic too, or urgent care, or whatever you have access to make sure that there is no infection, everything's healing correctly if it is an open fracture. But having those check-ins too is almost impaired. Like you have to do that in order to heal from these situations. You can't typically just see one person and be like, everything's going well. If you're really taking this to account and trying to get back into a performance-based setting like Silva or any of the other athletes we mentioned, you're having probably multiple follow-ups in the same week on some days. It takes a team. It takes a team to recover from something like this, and a lot of emotional support. But once you get over the weight bearing and the basic functional movements, you're able to be bipedal without assistance. You're going to get challenged a little bit more with advanced balance and agility training, functional training, You might do a little bit more compound things, whether that be a goblet squat or something of that with a hip hinge, like an RDL. But you're going to do a lot more directional changing too, like we talked about with rotation, maybe even jumping. Try and ease your way, building up the pace with jogging, sprinting, seeing where you're at with that. Quicker lateral movement. In Silva's case, probably a lot of high kicks, like slowly building up to that in terms of acceleration and velocity. So thinking about his goals is really important for the advanced stage, because you want to be pretty challenging within your approach to rehabilitation, to where it's not cookie cutter stuff that you're missing when you're trying to get back to the performance setting. I
You
like
basically
to,
wanted to mimic whatever he's gonna be doing, like, in the future, like, with fighting, you wanted to mimic every movement that he's gonna do, whether it's wrestling, kicking, punching, simulating those things best, that way he gains the strength and he has that stability whenever he gets back to doing those things.
100%. And flexibility would be big on this one too. And repetitive motion, like repetitive active motion, just because of the different positions he would get in, whether that be through grappling or
Yeah.
even just a repetitive jump rope. You got to think about that in terms of the bone density too. So building that up with, even if it's like small chopping of the feet or small lateral direction with lateral change of direction with chopping of the feet. Even if you're doing the old sombrero cone drill, like chopping your feet around a sombrero, like a cone, like a little sombrero dance, clockwise, counterclockwise, that can be a good precursor to lead up to those points where somebody's twisting your leg. What are you going to do? You got to be able to withstand that kind of torque, that rotational force that takes place within grappling. And then, of course, the impact when you're kicking. And a lot of times people say impact can improve bone density. So you got to take that into account, that we're not being too light in the approach, especially for somebody that elite. But always checking up on the not symptomatics, but the symptoms that are taking place within the process too. So checking all of your systems, checking symptoms with the patient, communicating all the time. You got to know every single detail that's taking place. You got to really own the rehabilitation process as the provider and make it your own. Kind of don't just brush it off like another day. Like, you're ready for a challenge. This is going to be eye opening for the both of you. It's going to be a journey, but you also got to always keep safety like first and foremost in a situation like this. So as long as you're seeing that gradual progression, taking it light on the feet, of course, maybe we do some different techniques that are non-weight bearing, move to that progression point where you can bear weight and start to get a little more dynamic, gain more strength back, gain more confidence back. And then you're doing a little bit more advanced things, hopefully within almost a 4 to 12 week time frame, but it would not stop at 12 to 18 weeks. Like, this is a continual thing you have to work on to get better, to maintain that progression, to maintain the tissue, reduce atrophy. And it's a traumatic situation. Like, your nervous system is not really prepared for what takes place in something like this, but it's going to do its best to try and adapt. You got to put the effort into to make sure you get back on the right path to perform at a high level.
Yeah, that's what the body's good at too, is adapting and overcoming certain things and going through the healing process. As long as you're doing things correctly, your body wants to get better. But it's also, you got to listen to your body while you're going through these different stages and steps too.
Oh, no doubt. And I just can't stress enough how much and how important communication is with your provider, family, not just be like, oh, I'm tough. You got to throw that out the window. You're tough because you're here, right? You're tough because you're trying to get better. We already know that. So you got to be an open book with everything that's taking place to get the best outcome. But you look back into sports psychology too, for those high level guys, it's day one they're getting that kind of treatment and that kind of support. That's going to usually take place throughout that whole progression, that whole process. They're going to have both mental and physical aspects covered. So, as a general population injury for the everyday guy, everyday girl, something to look into if you want to get a therapist, like even a sports performance therapist, that'd probably be a high level of access for somebody to get the best outcome too. It's not always a must, but it definitely always helps. So if you are struggling quite a bit if you're an elite runner and you can't run anymore, that's taking away a part of your lifestyle. So it's seek mental health. It's definitely necessary.
Yeah, and it's an identity thing. That's what it is. Like growing up playing sports all your life, it's a part of your identity. It's literally who you are. And then one day when it's taken away, then it's you don't know who you are without, in Silva's case, without fighting, without baseball, without running or whatever it may be. And then you have to find that in yourself again and again. Like you're saying, the mental health part of things, getting a psychologist, whether it's sports related or not, is always a good idea to help you figure out who you are again post injury.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. It's definitely just something to take into account of could change your outcome, could change your outlook on a lot of things too.
Why don't you tell me some of these? Once he finished all that, what were some of the different training things that he had to do going forward just to get prepared to fight again?
So, like we talked about, like huge focus on safety. So, not re injuring the injury, making sure we're not aggravating any other symptoms, especially more of his high risk and signature moves that he's able to perform. Grappling, we talked about. I'm sure the UFC coach would have that progression too, as well, where you're starting back with the basics, leading into more advanced sparring. So if you have a great coach, a mentor, a great team around you in a situation like that, you're not going to do high risk moves initially. Same thing, big focus on safety, overall conditioning. Huge. You have to fight for your life for what is the time frame? 5 to 10 minutes?
It's either 3 rounds of 5 minutes or 5 rounds of what something like that. I forgot. Ryan, do you remember the times?
I think it's 5 and 2.
Okay.
I think that you were on the right track.
Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, it's
Even
like you're saying with safety, like getting back to the basics. I'm sure they focused on fundamentals for months before they even did like full speed workouts or training or anything like that.
Yeah, very controlled, like slow pace, getting back into a rhythm, creating that foundation again, going back to the basics. And that's huge for almost every training program ever. Like even if you take a summer off, you're going back to the basics. You got
Yeah.
to recondition, get back to playing shape or fighting shape or whatever your goal is. And if you overdo it too quick, you're going to have all these maleffects. There's got to be a gradual progression, step for step. So getting professional help is huge, especially in a fighting UFC situation, football situation, any type of performance scenario, but also everyday life scenario for a major fracture too. You want to really get into a good progression overall that you're not overdoing it. So enhanced conditioning. You might even have to change your techniques and your approach a little bit. So some things you might not be able to kick like you used to. So you might have something you have to almost reteach yourself that you're more capable of doing in a different manner. So maybe the knee kicks are a little bit different than they used to be, but you have to, that's kind of part of an injury too, is you have to cope with how you're going to be when you come back from an injury. It's like we talked about with Kevin Pierce's injury, is you got to be ready for the Kevin after the injury. Like it's going to be a brand new guy. Of course, that's a brain injury, but Same thing, it's a brand new lifestyle you're taking on, brand new approach. You might have some new specialties about that could also improve your game a little bit because you open up some different routes and technicalities too, different approach that you might have not tapped into before because of the injury as well. So, looking at the glass half full, it could make you a more all around better fighter if you are healing properly through this process too, which this next bit I think is pretty clever, but also necessary is like improving your defensive strategies, making sure you can protect yourself better. So being able to brace and protect your leg, protect yourself from like high risk impacts more effectively and efficiently. So having a good UFC coach in which he was able to have access to reduce the amount of stress the body's taking place of 23-year career. I think he did okay with that.
I was gonna say too, with Anderson Silva, being a more defensive fighter is definitely an adjustment because that man was all gas, no brakes, almost all offense all the time.
And I imagine he wanted to like rush through that rehab.
Oh, I'm sure he's probably chomping at the bit every day doing the tedious tasks that just have to be done just because it's just what you got to do.
It just comes back to mindset though, like hunger to get back to it, hunger to come back, not just come back, but come back better.
And that's why he's a champion.
Protective gear and equipment. So additional caution when you're taking strikes to the leg, if you're kicking, especially lower extremity strikes, body kicks to the head, progressing to higher velocity kicks, making sure if you need to brace, that's accessible too. And also just padding, things of that nature. And being a little more cautious when you're not training too. So not having accidents outside of what could be taking place in the ring or during your performance training, but not falling down the stairs, slamming your leg in a car door,
Yeah, that would be detrimental.
being a little more cautious, a little more cautious and protective of that injured leg. Diet and nutrition, huge. Of course, when we talk about risk of infection and just different things of that nature. Diet rich in calcium, vitamin D, and other nutrients essential for bone health was likely adopted to aid in the healing process for overall recovery. Staying hydrated all at all times, just about. And then looking into protein intake, collagen intake, and vitamin C intake to improve absorption of collagen and protein would be big in this situation as well, especially for the immune system with vitamin C and also D3. Just making sure that you're not running on fumes throughout the rehab process, getting not adequate or proper nutrition, but optimal, making sure, of course, you're not exceeding like amounts of sugar with expenditure of calories and then putting yourself at more risk of weight gain and obesity and high blood pressure or something like that. But looking at more optimal ranges that you need to be touching for a proper healing process and also tissue growth like hypertrophy and also things that improve tissue resilience within tendons and soft tissue, musculoskeletal things. Collagen is a big one too. There's a lot of different sources out there that I believe are third party tested that you can check into and get the right supplement that you need for proper absorption as well. So yeah, coming back from this injury, he left a huge legacy. Fracture and subsequent recovery just created a pathway that guys can come back and be successful from an injury like this. It's super alarming, of course, when you see it, but with the right mindset, with the right approach, with the right procedures, with the right team, all the way to the surgical setting, the right surgeon, doing your research on that side. But even though it might be urgent, you might not have an option. It just highlights his physical and mental toughness that inspired so many through the MMA and UFC community and beyond. I could even see CrossFit people admiring this, people within the strength and conditioning world, like using this as a landmark to be okay, this is possible to come back, and also just overcoming adversity and being relentless in the pursuit of greatness. His journey on this injury led to his eventual return to fighting, and it's just incredible to see that from a medical treatment standpoint, what we can do with sports injuries, and also what you can do mentally for yourself too. So not even just for an elite athlete into the age of his late 30s onward to 40s, but what you can do for the everyday person in terms of their approach to injuries too. Um, Mindset's huge, your medical team's huge, your support system's huge, your therapist is huge. It's all something to take account of to be successful and see proven results.
Well, I think that about wraps it up on Anderson Silva. Again, as Tyler was discussing, he made that return, and now what's his gym called? Isn't it Spider Gym? I think that's what he's doing now post career.
Is it Spider Gym?
I think
He
it's
ended
called
up going
Spider
up
Gym
in
or
the
something.
league?
Yeah, I think it's called Spider Gym. But yeah, basically he has his own gym now, and he's training athletes and stuff like that post career. I think he's still fighting, but he's not taking near as many fights a year and kind of focusing what seems like on teaching now, which is cool to see. But anyway, Ryan, you want to get us into our discussion topics and let's wrap this bad boy up?
Spider Kick. Spider
I wanted
Kick.
to add that he has 2 sons that he also coaches for boxing in that gym. So cool.
Oh, that is cool. I did not know that.
Spider Kick Fitness. So yeah, he's going into the full swing of coaching now, which is pretty awesome.
And a quote from him is, "My teaching is my legacy." So obviously that's like what he really holds close to himself is teaching. And I don't know.
Pretty powerful.
No, I think that's pretty cool because it shows his mindset through this injury and through the fighting, like his career as a whole. That just how he's evolved and adapted, and now he's how he views teaching. I don't know. I think I agree with you. I think it's a really cool quote and just shows you the championship mindset yet again that he has.
So the first question I will ask you guys is, would you get in the octagon against a UFC fighter in their prime right now? If you won, you would win $1 million. But if you lose, you get nothing at all.
See, so here's the thing. Okay, none of us are gonna win. So who are we?
What have you got to lose?
Nothing. But the thing is, like, what if it's just a draw? What if I just don't get knocked out? What if, like, how about that?
Hey, you got pride and experience on your belt. And then maybe somebody signs you to, we got to get him back in the ring.
Dude, no fucking way anybody signs me after that showing.
I need the Chuck that punches a 3-foot hole through the drywall. I think he could do it.
Oh, dude, I'll try. I'll definitely do it. But is it gonna go well? Probably not.
You never really know until you try, which initially I was thinking like, you know what? I'll hop in the ring. I'll get my ass beat. I'll see what happens.
Okay, so here's a
He
good one
said,
for you.
or you get nothing. And I was like, maybe I don't want to get my ass beat. But then I was like, maybe I want to kick some ass. $1 million on the line.
All
I
right,
might
so you
step into a new gear.
get in the ring, and across from you is Francis Ngannou.
Okay, it would be
We're gonna
fair.
wear his
Okay,
ass
so
out.
same division,
Same weight
weight class. All right, fair enough.
A lot of footwork. We're gonna go tap into conditioning here. We're gonna wear his ass out, wear him down. And then we're gonna sneak some holds in there. Maybe a couple elbows to the head.
You're gonna sneak some of this.
And then I get knocked out.
I tell you what, I get in the ring with Conor McGregor. I'm just going for that steel leg. I'm going for the knee.
Are you walking in there with the arm swinging like him?
100%.
You got to do it.
With the bottle of his whiskey in my hand too.
Do you think he'd give you a shot before the fight?
100%, because he wants to win.
Yeah, he's marketing now. He's not even fighting.
Yeah, dude.
He'll sign up for you thinking about marketing.
Ryan, would you do it?
I would want to see who my opponent would be, and then maybe I would answer it.
It's not a bad approach. What if it was? Where do you draw the line? Where are you like?
I go
Yeah,
5 pounds heavier or lighter.
or hell, I'm out.
I don't know. There's one way, if you think about it, if there's a really good fight, it's just, hey, I just fought this guy. There's no way I was going to win anyways. Or do you take the guy that's really bad and then he still beats your ass?
Or you get your pride beat up too.
Yeah.
Damn, you just lost to the
pros.
worst fighter in the UFC.
Grant.
Food for thought. I think for $1 million, I'd give it a shot, but I don't think any of us are walking out with a dub, to be honest with you.
I think you go for it. There's not many chances you get $1 million, but yeah.
Are your
I'll
odds
fight.
better
You're
than a
going-
lottery ticket?
Yeah.
I would think so.
Yeah.
5% chance, probably.
What do you think the books have your over under at?
Over, under, like time?
Like your over under betting odds?
No. Plus 1,500.
Were the 1,500?
No.
Honestly,
All right.
1,500 is generous. No experience ever.
Yeah.
I was
that
thinking
is-
like,
Bro.
That's what France had, wasn't it? Against the US? It was like 1,400. And they only won by like a point.
On
The US.
basketball.
give
Yeah.
me plus $1 million.
But
I think
those
that's the
are,
odds.
they're at the Olympics. That's their best versus their best.
I know, but they had Wembanyama and they weren't bad players. Still plus 1,400.
That's what I'm saying though. Like they had some NBA guys on there. They had a couple all-stars. But
Yeah,
like
so
we're
we'll
walking in
It'd
there.
be a little
swim-
more drastic.
We got
I-
swim trunks and flip flops, and we probably just say KFC. Maybe
I think we're sitting at plus $1 million odds.
Okay.
go $1 on it. They would
Yeah.
lose a lot of money if we're only winning $1 million.
All right, hit me with the next one, Ryan.
All right. With football coming back into play, do you think the new college football conferences will be better or worse than it was with all these schools switching to Big Ten or whatever, SEC? Do you think it'll be better or worse for the NCAA?
I think the Big 12 is going to be wild. I think the Big 12 is a huge question mark on it right now. Who's it going to be?
I'll give you that one. The Big 12 is up in the air. But I think overall, as far as competitiveness goes, I like the big changes, like with the Big Ten and the SEC. And I think everybody's talking so much shit about Texas. And I don't know. I have a feeling that they're going to kick some ass this year. And I can't.
So
Yeah.
they're not like they're expected to be really good.
Yeah, but you see all over Twitter and Instagram, it's like, oh, Texas is in for a rude awakening in the SEC. And I'm like, no, they're not. I think
Yeah,
they're going to stomp everybody.
Be all right.
Yeah, I
I've
think they're going to
seen-
be great.
I've seen more shit talk on Oklahoma and A&M. Like I've seen things like, oh, they're falling off the map. Till I saw somebody post about Norman, Oklahoma's Hooters today, and they're like, they're not SEC ready, like all the way down to their community.
Oh, that shit's funny.
Quinn Ewers getting a lot of Heisman hype. I think,
Yeah, I don't know
I
about
think their
that.
wide receivers stepped up. I think their defensive backs are going to be a little bit better. I think they'll be fine.
I don't think Quinn Ewers is a bad quarterback, but I don't think he's going to be a Heisman.
There's a lot of hype around it.
We need to put in
wasn't
Manning.
with it before, but
We just need to put in Manning. That's all I want to see.
that's what everybody wants to see.
Dude, he's
He'll
got a
get his
cannon.
time. He'll get his time.
Cannons,
I
people.
heard. Do what?
Cannons, people.
I saw something that Michigan's going to be under 8 games this year on wins.
We'll find out week 2.
It's a big
Texas.
change to their program.
Texas going to give them their first loss.
First L. That's exciting. That's coming up.
Oh,
Yeah,
dude, I'm
I feel like
pumped.
there's going to be a lot more big games because all these guys are just going to beat up on each other. And then we'll have the Big 12 when somebody's going to end up undefeated and they're not going to be in the playoff or something.
Yeah, exactly. University of Houston's going to go undefeated, win the Big 12 championship, and then just get voted out. But
something.
Yeah. But I do the new college playoff format. That's what I'm excited for.
Yeah, more teams, right? What
Exactly.
is it? Oh,
It's 12. Is it 12 or 8?
I believe it's 12.
I think it's 12, which I think is honestly the best move the NCAA has done in years.
yeah.
Michigan ranked number 9 right now.
Their ass.
They're going to drop.
I don't think they're going to be bad, but they won't be last year.
That's true.
All right, next question. Recently, I just picked a honeymoon destination.
Ooh.
We chose Punta Cana, Dominican Republic.
Nice.
I wanted to ask you guys, where would your dream honeymoon be?
That's a good one. Dream honeymoon. I feel like a lot of people say Paris, but
Yay.
yeah, I don't know about
I'm just kidding. I'm going to cut that.
Yeah, you can't say that. That's like saying an R word, dude.
Put that in the intro.
Just extended, just gay.
Now I don't have to.
Honestly, there are parts of France that have beautiful mountains. There's parts of, I believe, Spain too that have beautiful mountains.
The Alps, Mount Blanc.
I don't know if I'd want to go somewhere where I have to worry about talking in Spanish the whole time.
You got a smartphone, bro. You'd be fine.
Not going to have to speak Spanish at a resort.
No, I'm not saying like, I'm just saying like in general. All inclusive does sound nice though. Somewhere all inclusive. Is beach like the go-to? Is everybody think?
I think that's pretty common.
I've always thought Maldives or like Fiji or something like that.
That's what I would say. If it was a beach one, I was going to say Maldives. And then just in general, if I had to pick, it's really between New Zealand, Switzerland, or Japan. For
All
me.
good ones.
What part of Japan?
Ooh,
Probably
like,
Kyoto.
okay.
I've heard Kyoto is gorgeous. Maybe go check out Mount Fuji. I don't know if Mount Fuji's close to Kyoto, but I'd like to look at that too.
Parts of Thailand too. Like Phuket and stuff like that. Like coastal
Phuket?
and yeah.
Yeah, Thailand looks pretty too. And I've heard it's really cheap to go there in the Philippines.
Yeah, that whole Philippines area, super nice. Australia would be interesting,
Nah, fuck that.
depending on the spot. Maybe not honeymoon, though. Yeah.
Australia's gorgeous. From what it looks like, is gorgeous on the Gold Coast. But dude, everything's trying to kill you. I don't know. I'm not a snake guy. I don't want to wake up in a black mamba be in my bed.
You gonna be in the desert or just out in the jungle?
Maybe.
I do think jungle vibes are pretty cool,
Right?
though.
Like the spiders are huge, and I don't know. That's what you hear, but has anybody experienced it? Is it
Not that I know of.
Is it made up?
It might be.
What made y'all pick there?
So we really just wanted a beach location, and we done it all inclusive for sure.
Yeah.
We didn't want to do Mexico because we both been in Mexico. So we wanted to explore somewhere else. And for the price we found, it was the best option, we thought. It was a 2-story villa. It's got a
Oh, shit.
plunge pool. Yeah, it's sick.
That's pretty cool. Like, that would be what I would want too. Just a lot of space. You got your own pool. You got
Your
almost a
own, yeah, your own top floor, just wide open, and it's got like a hot tub type thing on top.
like badass view. Like,
Probably,
I feel like Greece is up there for a lot of people.
Oh,
yeah,
that's a good one. I didn't even think about that.
You can go to Mykonos.
yeah. Fleet
Fleet
Foxes
Foxes playing.
wanting to go to the Virgin Islands, but those were just a little out of the budget.
The Virgin Island is gorgeous. I've been there. I've been to the American side at like St. Thomas and St. John's. And then we did a day over on the British side, and it was awesome. It was really cool.
It looks really cool. All right, so the next one, I'll go back into a sports question. Who do you think will win the World Series? Do you have
A
a?
dark horse. Hold on.
Rockies.
That's too dark.
That's like dark unicorn.
Yes.
Rangers.
I don't think they got it in them this year. I think I'm pulling for. I don't even know who's like at the top of the divisions right now, to tell you the truth. I haven't even been paying attention. Let me see.
I'm gonna fuck around and say the Twins.
Yeah, Twins have been really good.
Twins, Brewers.
You know what? I know we're not fans of them, being Rangers fans and all, but I think I got to give it to the Orioles.
Those, they're up there too.
Those are playing pretty damn good. You can't count out the Dodgers.
Even the Guardians are oddly decent this year.
If I had to pick a dark horse, though, let's see.
I'm not
I'm-
picking the Phillies.
I'm not
I'm going
picking Phillies
Padres.
either.
I'm picking the Twins on my dark horse. They got some
Yeah.
young guys that are throwing the ball. If they all hit on all cylinders, they're a pretty good team. They got some powers, good bounce contact, some speed, and then Carlos Santana is probably playing like the best he's ever played for no reason. At 38 years old.
I'm going to say the Red Sox are going to make a late season push.
There's no wrong answer right now.
That's true.
Favorite, even over the Dodgers, in my opinion, because I feel like the Dodgers are Shohei and Mookie, sometimes Teoscar, but that's it.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
Chris
fair.
Taylor-
Oh, Gavin Lux has been playing. He's been hitting the ball better.
yeah, so I'm going Padres.
I like that pick, too. That's what I was thinking about.
They got some experience under their belt, and they've been
Yeah.
getting a lot of shit talk lately. So maybe light a fire.
I want to see him against the Yankees and like really beat the Yankees for some reason,
And they
That would
got
be
Cease.
great.
Like,
just because it's Soto and
yeah,
I do Soto, but I don't know.
there's some beef there. Padres is a good pick. It is a good pick because their lineup, you got some decent hitters in there. You got
some
average
shooters.
wise, it's not crazy, but you got Iores and Profar, Cronenworth, Machado, Bogarts. Merrill's been playing well. And then that's when it gets weird. You're rolling the dice for the other guys. Donovan Solano's been great. And it's weird that Martin Perez has been doing okay there. He was good for the Rangers, but then he was like tapering off in the past few years with the Rangers. But
I guess we'll see.
down to bullpens.
Yeah.
Usually does.
Getting
All right, my last question: what's the last movie you watched, and how would you rate it?
Oh man. Last movie I watched.
I watched the second Jumanji movie with The Rock and Kevin Hart, and I'd give it 4 stars out of 10.
I was supposed to say 4 out of 5.
Out of 10.
So you rate 10 stars.
Yeah.
So you didn't like it.
No, it was very cheesy. It's probably what you'd expect, but I don't know. I thought it sucked.
You didn't like Jack Black being a girl.
I love Jack Black. He's like the best part of the movie, to be honest with you.
He is. Yeah. Do
But that was the last movie I watched.
you remember?
I'm trying to think of the movie I watched. Hold on. There is a Hold on 1 second. This golf movie with Dennis Quaid. It's called The Long Game.
Oh, I watched that. I saw that.
That was an interesting movie. It put things into perspective about how golf clubs approached members and just how the adversity was experienced through that area of Texas too. I wouldn't say it was like the best movie in the world, but I'd say like 6.8, 10.1, somewhere in that range.
I'd say that's accurate. And it was a true story too, which is cool.
Yeah, it was a true story. It was cool to see that. And then you see them in Kerrville and like different spots through Texas. But it just didn't really make me think of golf being that exclusive back then.
All right. You want me to give you one? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where'd you watch?
Well, last one I watched was called Nowhere. It was supposed to be a horror movie, I think, or thriller. I don't know. Yeah, I would say it's like a 2 out of 10.
I was gonna say that's got to be pretty bad if you don't even know what genre it belongs to.
It's a scary movie, I think.
It's not. It's about these people who get powers, and if they use their powers, their noses bleed, and if people or the government find those people, they'll kill them. And then, so the dad traps his daughter in the home so she doesn't go in public. And so nobody will see that her nose is bleeding or whatever. So it's really mind-bending, but I don't think it's good enough to rewatch.
Fair enough.
There it is.
Yeah. All
I
right.
will- I will not put that one on my list. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Let's rate the injury that we just went over.
You go first, Ryan. What would you rate this injury?
On the Wavy Gang scale, I'm giving it a 4.8 out of 10.
Okay.
It's clean. It's not clean, but it's a gruesome injury. But he's walking. He went back to the sport, and that's something that you would not think of after a UFC fighter breaks his leg. Maybe that's just because he's really has integrity and I don't know.
Intense personality.
Yeah. He's got the soul. He's a dog.
I got
He's a
soul.
Dog. Anderson Silva. Dog.
Dog. Kevin Pierce.
Dog.
Austin Faulkner. He's a dog.
All right, Tyler, what would you rate it?
From a personal and internal perspective of me cringing when I get that feeling in my legs watching it, probably like an 8.2. But then I know it seems high. Seems a little high. But
Give it to me on the.
I've always thought of if I had an injury like that and I looked down, how would I respond? What would be going through my head? What would I be feeling? I don't know. There's just a lot of question marks that make you wonder and could put some fear in your head a little bit, especially if you understand the gravity of it and what could happen if things go wrong.
Yeah.
But I would probably say on a more realistic, not realistic, but
No, it's whatever you want.
Scale,
8.2 is good.
I'd probably say like a 6.7, 6.9.
Nice. All right. So me, I'm just gonna do. I agree on this. I know what you mean, Tyler, but again, I think I'm just gonna go off the next wave scale here, and I'd probably say a 5.7 or something like that. The reason being is because it was a closed fracture, so there was no infection. Blood flow doesn't seem to be cut off. He didn't have to have it amputated. There was no severe like arterial damage, but
Lucky. You got pretty lucky.
he got very lucky, and he made a full recovery, and his leg looks almost completely normal when you look at it now compared to Alex Smith or something like that. For those reasons, the mental stress of it is probably the worst. Like you're talking about, like you look down and your shit is fucked. And you're just like,
Flopping around like some flarp.
yeah, I don't know what I would be thinking in that situation either. But for those other reasons, because everything worked out really well for him on our scale, I think I'm going to go with a 5.7.
That's fair. I think we're right in that range that we all thought of. Like,
Definitely.
That's pretty accurate. Good balance, guys. Nice job.
High fives.
High five.
High five. All right. Ryan?
Let's wrap it up, I think. So if anybody has an injury that they've endured and wants to share it with us, you can DM us or let us know and we'll shout you out or something if you want us to do that.
Throw it in the comments.
Yeah.
Name it. We talk about it.
Sounds good. Oh, and then last thing, let's go over the exercise thing. So what was our total times for the mountain climbers?
Dog has been like 4 months.
I think I did a total of 8 minutes.
I think in my week I did 8 minutes.
Dude, I did 4 days or something
All right,
like.
So we're gonna say no one wins this one. We're
I
gonna
did.
call.
I will say I got to the point where I was doing them for 2 minutes straight at one point. And I will say that is a task.
Yeah. After you said that one time I tried it and I was like, wow, this is fun.
It was 2 minutes, baby. Dude.
Do we agree that it is a draw though, since it's been so long?
That's fine with me because no, you're last, bro. What are you doing? 8 minutes in 4 months?
And for me,
No, for
I
Chuck.
did in a week.
No, he said 8 minutes total.
Oh, wait,
But-
mine was 100% total, not just in a week.
Oh, okay.
What happened in my brain to help me push further on these was thinking of those guys that free climb and boulder. And I'm like, if it takes them 15 minutes to climb a wall with no straps or anything, like in the extreme free solo type scenario, I was thinking of him specifically. I was like, I can mountain climb for 4 minutes, 2 minutes. I can get it done.
But those guys stop on the wall.
Dude, they
They're not
take breaks.
continuously running up the wall.
No, I'm talking like the free solo documentary where he's just like climbing.
Yeah.
Oh, he is moving.
Climbing
That's
the
fair
base.
because he's going for world records.
Oh,
Fall, that's something I've agreed with myself that could happen.
Jesus. All right, so
You don't fail me now.
next challenge,
No.
is it gonna be most miles ran in a week? Is that what we're doing?
That's
Yeah.
what we're doing. Like, running down.
All right.
Most miles in a week, y'all get ready.
Okay, we'll see. I'm running 6 in the morning.
Did we Strava track this?
Yeah, I think that's how we should start doing this, so we hold each other accountable and
Oh, I ran 36 miles yesterday.
yeah, nobody's cheating.
the only other way is if we take videos, which I did take videos on mountain climbers.
Okay,
Couple vids.
we could do both. Do you have Strava, Ryan?
Nice.
Let's start uploading everything to Strava. Why don't you give us the outro, Ryan? Say peace out.
Peace.
All right.
Get the fuck out. Yeah, come on. Microphone, check it. DJ radio, check it.
I hope you enjoyed the show.
Oh, Jesus. We'll be back in it. It's like an old man, small town DJ and a radio.
All right.
This was the Next Wave podcast. We had Tyler, we had Charles the Chuckmeister, and myself, Ryan. We'll see you next time on episode number 4. Check you later.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Subscribe, follow, and have fun.
Adios.